Numbers are literally everywhere, from the discount on a price tag to the size of a computer file. But are we all speaking their language fluently? Okay, let's dive in and kind of pull back the curtain on the everyday numbers that are secretly running our world. And if you think wrestling with fractions is just a modern-day headache, think again. Check this out. This is the Rhine Papyrus, one of the oldest math documents we've ever found. It shows ancient Egyptian scribes nearly 4,000 years ago grappling with the very same ideas.
And believe it or not, those ancient problems, they are still our problems today. We're constantly using fractions and percentages, maybe without even realizing it. Figuring out gas in the car, splitting a pizza, you name it. It's basically the source code of our daily lives.
So, let's get right into it and break down two of the most common ways we talk about parts of a whole: fractions and percentages. And as you're about to see, they're really just two different ways of saying the exact same thing.
All right, so first up, fractions. At its heart, a fraction is just a piece of a whole thing. You've got the numerator on top, that's how many pieces you have, and the denominator on the bottom, that's how many pieces the whole thing was cut into. That's it. Seriously, that's the whole story.
But take a look at this. A fraction like 18 over 40. I mean, it's correct, sure, but what does that even mean in your head? It's kind of clunky and hard to picture. The real trick to making numbers work for you is to make them simpler.
And here is the fix. If you just divide the top and the bottom by the same number, in this case 2, we get 9 over 20. It's the exact same value, but it's so much cleaner. It's something our brains can actually process without short-circuiting. That's the magic of simplifying. Okay, so where do percentages fit into all this? Well, think of a percentage as a special kind of fraction, one that we've all agreed on to make comparing things easier. The bottom number, the denominator, is always 100. In fact, the term percent literally just means per 100. It's like a universal translator for parts of a whole. And just look at this. You've got 50%, you've got 1/2, and you've got 0.5. They look totally different, right? But they all mean the exact same slice of this pie. They're just different dialects in the language of numbers, all saying the very same thing. Okay, theory is one thing, but let's make this real. Imagine you're trying to figure out a 25% tip on a $60 dinner bill. How do you actually go about calculating that? So how do we solve it? Well, you've actually got a few ways to tackle it. You could treat that 25% as a fraction, 25 over 100, and do the math. Or maybe you prefer decimals, 0.25 times 60, or, just punch it into your phone's calculator. See? Doesn't matter which dialect you speak, the answer is always the same, $15. All right, now for a classic real-world puzzle. I like to call it the reverse price tag trick. This is where you have to work backwards to figure out a price before a discount was applied. It's a good one. So here's the setup. You find a great jacket and the tag says 108. The sign says that's after a 10% discount has already been taken off. So, what was it selling for before the sale? What's the first number that pops into your head? Now, if you guessed $118.80, don't worry, that is the gut reaction for almost everyone. You find 10% of 108, you add it back on, it feels right. But it is a very common trap. And it's wrong. So here's why that's wrong, and it's a super important detail. The store didn't take 10% off of the $108 sale price. They took 10% off the original higher price, the one we don't know. We're talking about a percentage of two completely different amounts, and that changes everything. So here's how you actually crack the code. If the price was reduced by 10%, that means the $108 you're paying is what's left over. It's 90% of the original price. So now we know that 90% is equal to $108. To get back to the full 100%, we can just divide 108 by 90 to figure out what 1% is, and then multiply that little number by 100. And boom, there you have it, $120, a nice round number. It's a simple little trick, but it's powerful once you remember that the discount always goes back to the original price, not the one you see on the sales rack. Okay, let's switch gears completely. What about numbers that are just insanely big or super, super tiny? The ones with a million zeros. Trying to write those out is a nightmare. This is where we need a special tool to tame them. Standard form. I mean, seriously, look at these. Are you going to sit there and count all those zeros? No way. You're just asking for a headache or a typo. Our brains aren't built for that, and calculators literally run out of space on the screen. There has to be a smarter way. And there is. It's called standard form. You might have heard it called scientific notation, and it's a beautifully simple system. The whole idea is to rewrite Any number, no matter how gigantic or tiny, as a simple number between 1 and 10, and then you just note how many places you had to move the decimal point using a power of 10. And the payoff is huge. You can see it right away. Instead of that long, clumsy string of zeros, 358 million just becomes a clean, elegant 3.58 times 10 to the power of 8. That little 8 up there, that just tells you we moved the decimal point 8 spots. It's so clean, so simple, impossible to misread. And what's really cool is that it works just as perfectly for tiny numbers. That messy decimal on the left gets tidied up into 3.4 times 10 to the negative 7. That little negative sign is the secret sauce. It just tells us the decimal point went the other way to make a really small number. It's an amazing shorthand for everything from the size of planets to the size of atoms.
So, we've gone from ancient Egypt to modern shopping malls to the vastness of space. These ideas are absolutely essential. Let's wrap this up by putting together our new and improved everyday math toolkit.
All right, so here are the key takeaways for your toolkit. First, and this is a big one, remember that fractions, decimals, and percentages are all just different outfits for the same idea, so you can use whichever one makes the most sense. Second, when you're looking at sales, remember that percentage change is always based on the original price. Third, because of that rule, you can always work backwards like we did with the jacket. And finally, when you run into a monster number, big or small, standard form is your best friend for taming it into something you can actually work with.
So, with these tools in hand, the numbers all around you start to tell a much clearer story. The world is just full of quantities and values, all waiting to be understood a little bit better. So, the only question left is, what are you going to measure first?